This the link up. This the link up. This the link up. Welcome to the link up. This the link up. This the link up. This the link up. Welcome to the link up. Oh.
Yes, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Link Up Podcast with your host, Mistuh King. And on today's episode, we'll be recapping certain stuff, going over certain things, but won't do too long of an intro and all of that. Like, no need to lay out all the topics right in front. Like, I hope y'all can trust me, trust me enough to let me take y'all on this journey through music and the things that I'm interested in and all of that. But anyway, the first thing that we'll talk about, Certified Lover Boy. At this point, I know it's a little bit late. I'm a little behind the curve to some degree on all the people that have already done reviews on all of this. But their opinions aren't my opinions. And hearing everybody talk about this album, there's been a whole bunch of mixed reviews on the is it better than Donda? Is Donda better than this one? And honestly, I don't know. Like, I heard Styles P talk about it, and it's like, there's more rapping on Drake's album. I kind of listen to that more because of the just general feel of it. It's something that has a little bit more replay value to a certain degree. Like, it's more catchy, it's more structured in a traditional way. But Donda is like the subject matter, what he's actually talking about. That part of it is more personal. That part makes more sense, or is like, it's more stimulating, I guess, in terms of what is actually being said, what is being talked about. It's personal, relatable type of stuff versus Drake and his, Drake just raps about Drake type stuff. Chicks he fucking or not fucking anymore. Chicks he wants to fuck. Typical Drake shit, Donda, there's at least some food for the soul. There's some more positive messages, all of that type of stuff. But in regards to which one is better, they're two very different albums. Like, I agreed with Styles P's take, which is like, why do I have to compare them? They're two different albums. Y'all giving me two different types of things. One is named after Kanye's dead mom. The other is Certified Lover Boy, which is just talking about some female stuff. It's like two very different approaches to music that they've always had two very different approaches to music. I guess the one commonality or similarity you can say between the two is they've been somewhat experimental throughout their career. Kanye more so than Drake. But Drake has also been somebody to try mad new shit in terms of going everywhere, culture vulturing their sound, adopting their accent, whether it's Jamaican, British, whoever he feels like being around and pretending to be today. But he experiments as well, so it's just a different form of experimenting than the way Kanye does with all his weirdo stuff. Sips tea. But to me, the one interesting thing that I felt like it should have made the album in terms of Donda, or talking about Donda, like that Andre 3000 verse and song. Like, I wish Kanye finished his verse, because to me it doesn't sound like a finished verse. But like, had Kanye finished that verse, finish the song altogether, put that on the album, that is something I greatly would appreciate. But it's out there for the world to hear, leaked or whatever, so it is something that can still be listened to. So that is something I appreciate. But then we have another album. We have something that's actually a little more recent, something I kind of want to talk about. Baby Keem, the Melodic Blue. Because I felt like I pretty much said all that I needed to say regarding CLB and Donda. Like, it's not a whole in-depth breakdown and stuff that I feel those albums need, especially at this point that it's been weeks since they dropped. everybody has been talking about both of those albums for quite some time. At this point, is like I think people are sick of hearing about CLB and Donda. Well, I guess kind of something else to add to that is like the Met Gala thing was not too long ago since I'm recording this, because I believe today's Thursday morning at like a ridiculous hour in the morning. So the Met Gala wasn't too long ago, and then we had Keem and Kanye there looking like they did in their all black, I don't even know, dystopian post-apocalyptic warfare outfit. Like that's the only way I can think to describe the way Keem and Kanye been dressing for like Donda and post Donda. It looked like they know something we don't and they prepared for it. Makes you think about all the Illuminati type stuff, you know. Is there any merit to it? Looking at the way Kanye has been preparing us for the Hunger Games with each one of his fashion shows, like it's just been getting more and more dystopian, post-apocalyptic in terms of look. Now we can't even see Kim or Kanye's face because they're doing this just complete they're taking the mask protocols to like the highest level of absurdity, in my opinion. That is what Kim and Kanye is. Well, Kanye, and forcibly so, Kim is now being dragged along, you know, because Kanye is the genius in all of this. Like, genius, arguably, in asterisk quotation marks, you know. I don't know. For me, recording video is distracting. I like the podcasting with just me speaking. It's a lot easier without thinking about what I look like and am I making the right faces? Am I overthinking certain things? Because I definitely do tend to look way too much into the camera if I'm actually recording film. And me looking at myself, I start to think, am I making the right hand movements? Do I look the right way on camera? All of these things start to go into my head and I start overthinking too much and not really focusing on what I'm saying, which should be the main point of a podcast, like having your thoughts together and all of that. But yeah, where was I? Baby Keem, the Melodic Blue. So originally, kinda, I wanted to do I wanted to listen to his first two albums before coming back to this one. Maybe I will, and then update my review on this project. But in checking this out and looking at some of the responses to it, I saw people mentioning that this is his third project, and it's like, where were y'all? Like, was I the only one listening to his, I forgot the name of it, project back in 2019 and stuff like that? There were some of those comments online. And I only mention that because I saw people saying that this project sounds like a watered down version of his previous ones. And to me, that was an interesting take listening to this project, because I haven't heard anything Baby Keem drop other than Family Ties. And I think maybe one song, because he's been associated with the PG Lang and all of that for a minute with Kendrick. So like, I've been thinking, or I heard a song or two. But anyway, first full project that I'm hearing being the Melodic Blue from Baby Keem. And it's interesting. To start off, it's like, there's no one particular box you can put this project in. It sounds like a mix of everything. It sounds like what somebody raised around the culture of TDE would make. In good and bad ways, because it sounds like somebody that's not afraid to take risks, that's not afraid to try things that might not necessarily work, that haven't been proven, let's say, by other people. Like, there's a lot of different random sounds and transitions in the production is very varied. Like, there's a lot of difference. There's some trap sound and stuff. There's some stuff that sounds very like almost no drums, or very minimalistic in terms of drums, and it's more instrumental driven, just like more melodic driven, I guess, not instrumental. It sounds like things Tyler would create, or some things Kanye would make, If you think on, for example, Runaway with a long ass outro on some of the beats, they sound like things Kanye would rap on, things maybe Chance would rap on. Maybe like Amine, because he's a little weird, he's a little different out there. It reminds me kind of like that, while still sounding like Kendrick. Like there's certain inflections and the way he projects his voice on the mic when he gets into his actual rapping bag, because there's certain moments where he's kind of getting into like a early Lil Wayne-esque bag where he's kind of singing, crooning, that kind of thing. There's certain ones where he's just really like straight up rapping. There's all kind of sounds and influences on this project. Some of my favorite songs are Scapegoats. Like Scapegoats has a really beautiful beat. The song is about like 1 minute or 2 minutes because it's pretty much just one verse, and then he kind of ends the song off. And for me, it's like that was mad disappointing because what he was rapping about, the beat on that song is like I wanted more of that. My favorite songs: Scapegoats, South Africa, Vent, Range Brothers, all the stuff with Kendrick, of course. I'm biased, you know. Y'all should know this from all of my TDE talk on the previous episodes. And Absol called him the future, and I could kind of see where Absol is coming from, because to me it does sound like in some ways a perfected version of a lot of things TDE would experiment with over the years, while doing some other things that they wouldn't necessarily. Because most of the TDE members, at least the rapping dudes, they all been pretty like real lyricists, like this, real serious about the rapping side. Keem seems to me, and I know he's on PG Lang and not TDE, but it's hard not to look at it as an extension of this all the same thing, like they're the same branch. For example, why is Soul calling Baby Keem the future? From my understanding, Soul profits in no way off of Baby Keem's project. Him being on TDE, Baby Keem being on PG Lang, but they are like sister or brother labels, however you want to look at it. So I get it. But yeah, like I'm saying, he channels some of the Young Thug-ish kind of sound, some of the Roddy Ricch, the A-Boogie, you know the melodic, singy kind of rapping is not just straight up rapping, just like he definitely embraces auto-tune a lot, channel some Travis Scott type of sounds. So I get where he's coming from with the future. He is an amalgamation, it's hard to pin down, it sounds kind of abstract in certain ways, it's like abstract rap, but then with a very like childlike infusion, a very youthful feeling towards a lot of it. And there's one moment that had me kind of reevaluating an opinion that I gave on this podcast, where it was on the song Family Ties, when I was talking about family ties, and there's the last line in it where Baby Keem says number 2 DMing his chick, that's cool, he don't ask why. There's another song on this album, I'm blanking on the name right now, but there's another song on this album where he's kind of delving into these topics again, where like the chorus of one of the songs is he needs him a chick that no one knows. And this had me starting to think, like, my initial thought was on that line from Family Ties was that Kendrick was who inspired or wrote that line, and it was just Baby Keem delivering it. Kind of implying that like Drake was in Kendrick's girl's DMs or something like that, or Cole, whoever you wanna imagine as number 2. But with that other song that was pretty much going further into the same vein, the same thought process, way of thinking type of thing, it started to make me wonder, like, maybe Keem really wrote that line, because there's a lot of, chick talk kind of on this album. So it just made me wonder, like, was number 2 in Baby Keem's DMs? I mean, the DMs of Baby Keem's chick? If that's the case, It's interesting, and it makes me wonder who's Baby Keem's chick and why would Drake allegedly care about who Baby Keem is with. It makes me think either he got a really bad chick, or Drake just petty like that he don't even care, and just knowing the fact that he's close to Kendrick is like, it's just a weird thing. But anyway, now that Certified Lover Boy, Donda, the Melodic Blue is out of the way, there's another project that I kind of wanted to talk about that I think might be album of the year. Because like the Melodic Blue from Baby Keem is interesting. I appreciate the Kendrick moments, but as an overall project, it's very inconsistent in terms of songs that I like because of how experimental it is. It isn't really one consistent vibe where you can say, oh, I like this song, I like this song, I like this song. It's like you gotta really pick and choose because every song is a different direction almost, and it has like 2 or 3 directions within the song itself. So it's like, it's difficult to say what I like. And even Range Brothers is like super weird, and this Top of the Morning, let's get the shit. Like I was super thrown off and very confused as to what Kendrick was doing when I first heard the song. When I hear it now, I'm still confused by what Kendrick is doing, but I've gotten used to it now, so it's like less weird, but it's still a weird ass song. And then compared to Donda and CLB, Benny the Butcher's album is a third or half the length. Like there's 9 songs on it compared to Kanye's 24, I think it was. However many songs that Kanye, that long ass hour and 48 minutes project was, however many songs it had on it. Benny the Butcher album had 9 songs. And in my opinion, it has like 9 hits or 9 songs that I just let the album play, and I have absolutely no issue just letting it play over and over and over. This album sounds like Benny already did the selection that people might be doing from Donda and CLB and just cutting it down to 9 or 10 songs that they actually like and just playing those. Benny's project sounds like he already did that, and I'm late on the Benny project because this dropped earlier in the year. But shout out to Ryan, Susanna. He was on the podcast before, season 1. I kind of was discussing this with him, and he put me on to, he recommended that I should check out Plugs I Met Too from Benny, and I did, and I wasn't disappointed. He mentioned that one and another project, which was Tequila Sunrise by Kota the Friend, and I don't want to say too much on Kota's album because I checked it out, I listened to it, I enjoyed it. I definitely got like the vibe that it's in. It's something that I would enjoy, but just to be honest, like when I checked out Benny's project, that's pretty much all I've been listening to. So it's like that listening to Benny's project got in the way of me properly dissecting both CLB, Donda, like every other album that dropped that I was kind of thinking about and trying to gather my thoughts and collect my thoughts on it to really see like, how do I feel about them and give an in-depth review. Benny's project got in the way of that because I was just listening to it over and over and over. And it's like, the thing is, it sounds like the perfect album because Harry Fraud did the production on it. It's one of those albums where it's one rapper, one producer, so it's a pretty consistent sound throughout the entire album. And the production that Harry Fraud did on this project is like next level in my opinion, and it complements the drug talk that Benny does so well. Like the drug talk and that element of rap, that's like second nature to Benny, and this music, it just makes it sound so gangster, like old school gangster, mafioso, Italian mob boss, like that kind of gangster. It complements it so well. But the project is like amazing. I agree, because the reason this even came up in my conversation with Ryan was like, he was talking about album of the year type of thing. I gave him some of my candidates at the time. He gave me his, And I was like, I didn't check them out, so I couldn't give an opinion to say whether I agreed with his take. And I haven't listened to it. There's just difference of opinion and stuff like that. It's all subjective, it's music. But, he had Tyler, Kota, and some other album. I forgot. I think it might have been Nas. But I don't remember. He had Benny, Kota, Tyler, and something else in his albums of the year. I had some different ones in mind. Mine, like I said, was Nas. Pretty much had it. Cole had it at a point in time because at the time nobody else really dropped. Now, at this point in the year, I haven't heard CLB, Donda, Melodic Blue, Benny's project. Like, Benny might be it. It might be between Nas and Benny. But in a way, I'm thinking Benny because it's like, I like a lot of songs, or almost all the songs on Nas's project. But I genuinely like, I think, all the songs on Benny's project. Like, I'm not a huge fan of French Montana. And Benny made me appreciate a French Montana verse. And I know it's not fair to say it's Benny because it's Harry Fraud and French Like, the last time I was a fan of French Montana, it was when he was rapping on stuff from Harry Fraud. So, like, Harry Fraud is old school, is like classic French. So this is the French that people like, not all this pop that don't stop and mainstream club hit single, unforgettable French Montana. Like, that side of French Montana is cool for the people that stay in the clubs and like that type of music or whatever. But I appreciated the Coke Boys mixtapes type of French. Even though I'm not a drug dealing gangster rap type person, I ain't never sold no drugs type of stuff. Like, I like that kind of music. To me, it just feels like you're actually rapping about something versus just rapping about the club, like frivolous music that just here, gone tomorrow type thing. Here today, gone tomorrow. But if you haven't heard it, I recommend anybody to go and check out the plugs I met to from Benny the Butcher. To round this off, we can talk about verses. And I didn't see the whole thing because for whatever reason on the Triller app they don't have the whole verses. So maybe I need to check YouTube for one of those, unofficial streams. One of those bootleg versions that might have caught it from the beginning, because I thought Triller, being the official app thing, I assumed they would have the whole verses, but they basically started from the intermission, so that was kind of like halfway through the battle. I don't know, maybe I was doing something wrong. Maybe I gotta reconfigure some things, but the battle started from the intermission when Fat Joe went and did an outfit change, apparently. But yeah, verses happened. Like I said, I'm recording this on on Thursday morning, and the verses was Tuesday evening, like on my time, Holland time or whatever. Like, the verses happened 2 a.m. or something like that, our time. Or maybe it might have been earlier, 1 o'clock. I don't remember. But Fat Joe and Ja Rule did the verses. And from the half that I saw, it looked like a complete blowout, basically. It looked like it was the Ja Rule show. Fat Joe was struggling to keep up. And they had a lot of guests out, that was a highlight of the night. Ashanti came out. And did songs with both of them. Nelly came out, which was a weird moment, because he came out on Fat Joe's set. They did a song. That part, made sense. It was cool. No problems there. Brought some momentum back to kind of Fat Joe's side a little bit. Because for some reason, Fat Joe was trying to really sell the sexy and playing some of his more, his records aimed at the girls and stuff like that. And it just wasn't working because, like, Fat Joe is Fat Joe. Without me getting too deep into, what that means, me being a guy and stuff like that. But I was watching it with a young lady, and this was the opinion that she was giving me while I was watching. And it's like, yeah, it was it was hard not to see where she was coming from. Whereas like, when you're trying to sell a sexy record, generally, how Fat Joe does it is by featuring with somebody that kind of has that quote unquote, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't find the word. I'm blanking on it right now. But basically, you know, somebody that can sell sex, somebody that has that. I don't know why I'm blanking on the word, but the male artist with the sex appeal. So basically, you know, hollering at Chris Brown. There was another playing the song Another Round. There was another song he had with, I forget who was the other R&B feature, but he had the other R&B, and that like, and these were the guests that he didn't have. And even for one of his biggest moments, you know, when he played Make It Rain, it's like, I was expecting that and I was looking for it. To me, I feel like playing the remix would have been a great opportunity to bring out some more guests. And like, cause Make It Rain, it's one of those songs where it's like, Make It Rain is a huge song, but we don't remember Make It Rain necessarily for Fat Joe's contribution on it. Like, the chorus is where it's at. So if he had brought out Lil Wayne for that, that would have been a moment. If he even did the remix, I know R. Kelly's on the remix, and that probably played into some of why he's like, okay, let me not do the remix. But you could have did the remix and called T.I. to do his verse, call, like, you know, some of the other people that were involved in the remix that made it like, you know, a moment. Even bring out Scott Storch, had him on stage or something. Like, Make It Rain was a big song, and I felt like that moment in the verses, it wasn't treated right. It wasn't showed in its proper light. So it didn't hit the same. Like, to me, the way Fat Joe was performing, he needed a hype man. He wasn't ending a lot of his verses, a lot of his lines. He would like the rhyming word at the end. That part he would leave out constantly. But it just didn't sound right because in some cases he was rapping over his track, so like not an instrumental version. So they had to have the track kind of like lower than his vocals so that you could hear him. But because he's not finishing the ending words, it sounds like a mismatch of energy because his mic is louder and then the volume drops when he stops rapping, so you can hear the ending words from the backing track. And it's just a weird way to do things. Like, to me, it just made me think back to the Lox versus Dipset, like the clinic that the Lox put on how to perform rap songs. I felt like Joe should have been watching. Like, Ja Rule still in shape. Ja Rule still looked like as fit as he was when he made most of his hits. He's still being like the sex symbol type of thing, taking off the shirt, like having the women cheer and go crazy and stuff for those moments. Like, he can still pull those things off. So like when Fat Joe was trying to get into that bag, it didn't really work the same. Fat Joe being Fat Joe. And then, yeah, it was just like a massacre type of thing. Ja Rule won just based on what I saw. It was interesting. And since the last time I recorded this, you know, to get off of verses, to wrap things up on verses, like, I enjoyed what I saw. It was entertaining. Appreciated some of the nostalgia from Joe and Ja Rule, but although I don't feel there's that much nostalgia with some of the Ja Rule songs because we had an Ashanti verses, so like a lot of these songs were still more fresh in our memory because Ashanti played the same songs or some of the songs because a lot of her hits came from those collaborations that she did with Ja Rule. So it's like when Ja Rule pulls them out, it's like we already know these records is not that same, oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that, that was so great, it took me back to a time, it was still more fresh in my head. Like, yeah, you know, we know those songs coming, we was expecting those songs because like, yeah, we all know those were some of Ja Rule's biggest songs and they were huge songs, so I get it, wasn't mad at it. And in that regard, I can't appreciate the fact that Ja didn't go through his entire Ashanti catalog. They did Always on Time, Foolish, I think. They did maybe like 2 or 3. But they had more and he didn't play all of them. But jokingly, that was also kind of to give Ashanti a little break, because she performed the one song with Ja Rule, then she performed the other song with Fat Joe, and then she came back and performed the one song with Ja Rule. So it was like Ashanti was just the star of the show at the point in time. Oh, and back to the Nelly thing, because like he came out, he performed the song with Fat Joe, and then he performed Hot in Here, which is like, but Fat Joe has nothing to do with this song. It's a huge song. It swung the momentum back in Fat Joe's favor because, you know, Nelly was one of Fat Joe's guests, but it's like, it didn't swing the favor and swing the crowd in Fat Joe's favor because of Fat Joe. Like, they was cheering for Nelly, and the fact that Hot in Here is like one of the biggest songs ever, like probably Nelly's biggest song of his career. Still gets sampled and referenced and used in commercials and movies and stuff. So it's like, Hot in Here is one of those classics. But I don't know. It was just a weird moment. But shout out to Ja Rule. It was entertaining, you know, from when I saw it, from the intermission to the ending that I saw. But yeah, I didn't really expect it to kind of go differently. Like, I was curious to see how Fat Joe would have performed, but he kind of disappointed me. I expected more from Fat Joe. I expected Ja Rule did what I expected him to do, but I expected more from Fat Joe. But like, I think there was just some misjudgments of what is the hot shit from Fat Joe. Like, I don't think he's aware of, I think there's a lack of self-awareness. Like, he feels shit is really, really dope, but I don't know if he's checked it with the audience to see, like, do we agree? Like, is these the Fat Joe songs we like from you? Or is, like, I don't know. It just felt like there was a little disconnect there. Maybe in the sequencing, like when he played certain songs, the way he introed certain songs, like he swear this one is gonna ring off, this one is gonna be the smash, and then it don't really hit like that, or the crowd not that into it. It was just kind of weird for Fat Joe. The Jadakiss moment was great, you know. He came, he performed his verse, but we like Jadakiss just being Jadakiss at this point, so that wasn't even surprising. Didn't expect anything different. That was just Jadakiss doing what Jadakiss was supposed to do. Also, just wanted to say, you know, the Met Gala is weird. It happened recently. Like I said previously, I believe. I think I mentioned it already, but you know, it happened recently. And I was looking at pictures from it. It's a weird event. I know that it's supposed to be weird. The whole point of it is to dress like super eccentric and all of that. But I think like I'm just not that kind of person that is into fashion enough to get it. Every year, the pictures happen. They come out. All your favorite celebrities are there. Athletes, entertainers, people in all kinds of fields. Like I mentioned, Kim and Kanye being there in their all black Shadow Knight ghost ninja suits. I don't even know what to call the nonsense. Saw Serena, Naomi Osaka, Lewis Hamilton, Chance, and his girl, Steph and Aisha. Who else was there? Not a lot of people. Kid Cudi, Frank Ocean, Chloe and Halle. And the majority of people there look weird AF. To me, some of the people that looked the best that night was Steph and Aisha. They was just looking regular. Like elegant and, you know, classy, sophisticated and stuff, but regular. Rihanna and ASAP was there looking like they wearing grandma's blankets or something. Naomi Osaka looked like a cartoon character. Serena, I don't know what was going on with Serena. But this can just be my ignorant, uneducated, my low level of sophistication or understanding of what these rich people do with their money and time. Maybe that's just it. It's not for me. I don't get it. I just like regular looking people. Chloe and Halle, they look great as well. Halle had this pink thing that kind of looked like a something she would wear performing. Chloe had on this white dress. Long flowing kind of night, like wedding dress-ish, but still not really more like, it had a long trail behind it that was kind of wedding dress-ish, but it was more like, you know, an evening formal gown type of thing. And she dropped a new video. Lord have mercy. Very enjoyable video clip. The song is interesting. To me, it's just interesting to see what's happening between Chloe and Halle as they kind of start carving out their own individual lanes. Seeing mini Beyonce becoming mini Beyonce, meaning Chloe. Because they're both talented, they're an interesting group, like super creative pairing between the two of them. Listening to some of their projects, even though, like, you know, it's not like music for me necessarily, like I'm not the biggest fan of their music like that, but I can see the talent, I can see the skill, I can see the difference in what they bring to the music scene compared to a lot of R&B people that are out. And to call them R&B is even weird because they make very alternative-ish type of music, you know, being mad talented with the actual musicality and playing instruments type of stuff. So like, this Have Mercy song from Chloe Bailey is interesting. To me, she is doing what people was expecting from Normani, what people was hoping for from Normani. Being somebody that had the skill set, that could sing, dance, do it all together, had the look and stuff like that, that could potentially be like a Beyonce too. But it seems like Normani is going more maybe the Ciara, Janet Jackson type of direction, where it's like it leans more towards the dance than the singing, whereas it's kind of like almost the perfect fusion with a Chloe. Basically kind of paying homage to Beyonce. It's no coincidence she played young Beyonce in one of the movies. I think it was the Temptations thing. Chloe was young Beyonce. Years later, Chloe is signed to Beyonce's label. Feel like these things is no coincidence. So we see Chloe kind of, you know, taking over on that end. Then we got Halle doing her own thing with The Little Mermaid. Coincidentally, after Beyonce played Nala, I think it was, whoever it was that Beyonce played in the Lion King reboot, the CGI one. And then once Beyonce is in with Disney, here comes Halle getting to play Ariel in the Little Mermaid reboot. Is it a coincidence after being signed to Beyonce's label that these things happen? Who knows? But speaking of Lewis Hamilton, although not really, because, you know, I did kind of mention him in terms of he was there at the Met Gala. But in the world of F1, for those who don't know, I definitely recommend you checking out the series. I think it was called Drive to Survive, but it's on Netflix. And it's basically showing a lot of behind the scenes of what happens in the world of F1, some of the the F1 politics. But just, it's a racing sport. Started in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Bunch of car companies use it as like a super amazing advertising tool, but it's interesting as well. There's a lot that goes into it. From a technical perspective, from a financial perspective, like, there's a lot that goes into F1. But since the last episode I recorded, there's been two races. There's been the Dutch Grand Prix, and there was the Italian Grand Prix. The Dutch Grand Prix was interesting, being here Well, not here where I am, but in the Netherlands where I'm located. It happened at Zandvoort. And it was like a whole big thing because it was the first time in like 16 years that they had a race in Zandvoort again, because for whatever reason, I don't know all the details, there hasn't been a race in Zandvoort for a pretty long time. I think it might have been track renovations or stuff like that, I don't know. But it was the first time in 16 years that they had a race in Zandvoort. And it was a super huge thing, which was just it was interesting, especially considering some of the, I guess, considering the political climate currently in the Netherlands regarding everyone's favorite infectious viral thing that's going around. Because there was all the Dutch articles pointing out the hypocrisy that it seems to be when it comes to an event like F1, where there can't be no festivals, no clubbing, none of these type of events. But the F1 race is okay, and there's all the announcements that there's like 70,000 people in attendance at this thing. But then it all made sense. Apparently, Willem and his family was there, the King of Holland. So it's like, we can't cancel F1 if the king wants to go. The king needs to be able to watch his cars race. So forget what all the poor common people think about, oh, they want to go to festivals? Too bad. You don't get to go to festivals, but the king wants to watch F1. So the king and 70,000 people in orange shirts gets to watch F1. But aside from that point and the hypocrisy that was, rampant in that instance, in that weekend, because this was like not one, it's a multi-day thing. It's like you have the qualifying, then you got the actual race, like this, the practice, and then qualifying, and then the actual race. So this is like a 3-day type of thing, and you have people selling tickets, and the tickets are insanely expensive. So basically it was like, oh, so the rich people, if you make enough money type of thing, the rules don't apply to you. And it was just blatantly in everybody's face. But aside from that point, Max Verstappen, the one Dutch driver on the grid for F1, he won the Zandvoort race. So it was like, for the Dutch people, it was a huge like celebration in all ways, because you had the only Dutch driver winning the first Dutch Grand Prix in 16 years, and the celebration was crazy. Like over there at the event, they had like the orange flares, and like as soon as Max won, the flares were already going off. Like people are still racing, so you seeing like this orange smoke on the track, and people still racing. There's other people, because Max came in first, so of course the other people who were slower than him still got across the line and all of that. But they don't care. Max won. Time to celebrate. And I understand where they're coming from, It's a dope thing, because that's one of the things I appreciate about F1. It's like, it's a very international thing. It's a lot of different cultures, and the way it's set up, there's a lot of things to cheer for, because every race is in a new location pretty much. Like you have a driver from one place that represents a company that is from another place, and then they go to different places. So like there's a mix of home field advantage for certain drivers at different times, even though it's still heavily like British dominated, being like Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, and Lando Norris. Yeah. If I recall correctly, those are like the 3 British drivers that they have, and they got some other people from different places in the world, like Carlos Sainz being a Spanish driver, Ricardo being Australian, Bottas being a Finnish, Sweden, like one of those Scandinavian countries. I forgot exactly where Bottas is from, but one of the Scandinavian countries. Basically a whole bunch of different European people and stuff like that. Shout out to Lewis Hamilton being, the one black guy on the grid. Yuki Tsunoda being one of the He's a Japanese driver. Mix of cultures. And just the fact that it's like a super huge advertisement for the car companies at the end of the day, and car companies and whatever companies that get involved. Because, you know, Red Bull currently this year, like Max Verstappen drives for Red Bull. Red Bull does not make cars, but Red Bull has one of the best cars. Like, Max just won in the Dutch Grand Prix. And then there was a whole controversy between like Lewis and Max in the last race because they crashed. Both did not finish, which allowed for other people who, because every race is pretty much top three is Max, Lewis, Bottas. In some order, it's going to be Lewis, Max, Bottas, or Valtteri, since I'm using first names for whatever reason. But it's just interesting watching this championship unfold and seeing who's going to win between Max and Lewis. I don't even remember right now who's leading. It's either Max or Lewis, because I haven't checked the standings in a minute and I don't recall them off top after the Monza, because like I said, both Lewis and Max crashed. Bottas came in third. Ricciardo and Norris were first and second. Like, I didn't get to watch that race, that's why I'm not really, you know, focusing too much on the Monza one, but I actually watched the Dutch Grand Prix. I just saw the highlights and stuff from Monza, some of the post-race interviews breaking down the crash between Hamilton and Verstappen. But I appreciate F1 because it's a sport that I could actually watch living on this side of the world, that I don't have to stay up at ridiculous times for, like with basketball, which is probably the only other sport I cared about following. But living in the Netherlands, you can't really follow basketball like that. Like, I'm an old man, I have things to do. I can't just be, you know, staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning just to watch a basketball game. I'm not that dedicated of a fan. And I'm just not into football like that. I know football is the big European thing, but I'm just not into football like that. So F1 is great. Even though it's not like a traditional sport is not something I could ever practice if I ever wanted to. Because this is like the definition of a rich people thing. Just looking at the way it goes from the, like when you get into it, how the pipeline to even becoming an F1 driver operates, like how early people like Lewis and Verstappen and just the majority of the drivers that are on the F1 grid, how early they start and how long of a trajectory it is, and the backing you need to buy cars and to repair cars and all of these things. It's a lot of finances that goes into F1. So it's like, if you broke, you can't even practice to become an F1 driver. But regardless of that fact, it still is a dope sport. Seeing people pushing engineering and technology to the limits when it comes to what these car companies do with these cars. Seeing the drivers push these technologically advanced supercars to the limits as much as they can. When you're seeing stuff like the crash between Max and Lewis, it's people competing. People fearless. These people different. And they are like 5'7", bunch of tiny people. But all of that is why is like the F1 driver is a different thing when you think on like an athlete and what an athlete is supposed to be. Like the F1 driver is a different thing because it's so much about the technicalities and just very small margins of difference in like 1/10 of a second faster and stuff like that. Everything counts. Meaning like the weight of the F1 drivers is important. There's a reason they're all small and light and have like very thin frames, because if you have somebody that is 80 kilos, let's say, inside of the car, that's 80 kilos of extra weight on that car that helps slowing it down, maybe just enough that you lose in that race. Like, you want somebody that is as light as possible, but still as resilient as possible, that is able to withstand the G-forces and stuff like that happens when these cars are cornering. The amount of like just the acceleration and the change in direction, and like I said, the G-forces that I puts on the body, the pressure that I puts on the body is like, you got to be able to withstand that in these races. Be like 60 laps, 70 laps, basically like an hour or more sometimes. These people are in the car, it's hot, there's no real air conditioning like that. There's a lot of force or like pressures that the body is under. So it's still not completely non-physical, even though like the car is doing the drive, the racing, I guess. The driver is still going through some stuff. Isn't like, you can't just, don't underestimate it, I guess, is basically my point. But you know, with all of that being said, I think we can pretty much wrap this episode there. Wrap this episode up there. Been talking for like 50 minutes. Feel like that's a pretty solid amount of time for me, you know? So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you tune in, subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends and everybody you know. And then we get to, you know, the final segment, which is basically plugs. I'm gonna keep it shorter than I did on the last one, you know, but the last one was just letting y'all know what I've been up to, all the work that I've been doing. So I went a little bit more in detail, but you know, to summarize, check out some of the projects that I dropped over the past year. I'm going to put links to them in the description. The project with me and Screw. Well, I guess it was Screw project. Soualiga Two Pack. The Woods Pack by me. Summer Vibes from TZ. As well as Welcome to the Kingdom from TZ. All on streaming services, Spotify, YouTube, all of that stuff. So make sure you check them out. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you the next time we link up. Peace.